Eden Koz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. P.S. Just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a psychological empath, meditation master, dimensional healer, all the things to help you within this ascension. To learn more about me, visit me at edenjustbe.com. And let's get this party started. As you probably know, I do a lot of this and get ready. Misty, you want to do anything to get ready? Are you good? Ah, she is. Eden, as I just dropped my pencil down, bang, Just Be Spiritual Boom in association with the Grassroots Warrior Network. Before I talk more, I want to welcome the eloquent pipes of Misty Flowers from Washington State. Please say hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, and Misty and I met through, we're in a Loom together, so a sacred economy, which I'll just kind of mention lightly, again, an underground movement for learning about the abundance of money and dreams, like a living workshop. So we've known each other probably for a month and a half now. So I really get to know more about Misty today, which is awesome. All right, couple notes before I go into your bio. I ended up having a palmistry session with Cynthia Clark. She was a guest. It's probably been about 6 weeks ago. It was really amazing. So I want to state that out. I have never really looked at my fingerprints before in my palm. So it was so cool to do that. And she's so right on the money. And then I want to bring up, I will have Bjorn Waters in about 3 weeks. And I will have, before our session, a quantum hypnosis session with her. So we will be discussing that. I am feeling some really impactful dimensional stuff inside of me. So I'm hoping that will help bring clarity to some of that. We'll see. All right, on to bio. Misty is an herbalist, urban farmer, seed saver, singer, songwriter, Reiki master, Bodytalk practitioner, earth steward, mom, teacher, student, life learner, human rights advocate. She started Be Brave Washington, which we will talk about at about 2.5 years. It's been going on. She has spent many years building tools for sustainable living and love connecting through others through knowledge, music, and dream weaving. If you want to connect to her, I'll have all her contact information later. Or if you're listening, it'll be down there already. If you're watching, it'll be at the end and listed in the notes. You can find her on Facebook and you can find her on YouTube at Misty Flowers Music. Well, how was that?
Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. All right, I want to go into right away, which I typically lead into. There's some crazy stuff going on in the world right now, really intent on splitting us apart, further dividing us, and then being extra confusing because people who are in the truth movement, the awakened movement, there's also division on what side to take, which is really interesting, knowing that all of this is going to get more confusing, and that's the purpose of it. Tell me how you first came to know more that this was going on.
It's been really a slow wake up for me, just kind of over the years. I think probably my first big moment that happened for me was 9/11. I was pregnant with my firstborn, and I just knew something was off. And the more I started to look into it and ask questions, the more it really became clear that we weren't being told the truth.
Okay, how did you know that? Because I didn't even think about it at the time. What was
There
there a
was just
feeling in your gut
something
or just
deeply wrong. It was part of it was the huge media around having us watch people jump to their demise. There was something very repetitious about it. There was something I couldn't help but feel like we were being drawn to be angry, to be fearful, to be there was just something that felt very like, look at this, feel these horrible feelings in a way that before I kind of assumed that the news in some ways did protect certain parts of trauma from
Mhm.
going onto the main screen. And there was something about it that just felt really like we were being guided to feel things so that they could justify things behind closed doors. And like I said, it was a slow process for sure, but that was definitely a big turning point for me.
There, when I talk to people, a lot of people that was the turning point, or what just happened a couple years ago. Um, that's the big turning point. But all of you guys that saw it with 9/11, I think that is so it's powerful because you are so right. I think it was 3 days into it. I was pregnant with my daughter as well,
Mm.
that I had watched the horror of it consistently for 3 days solid. And finally, I was like, what the heck am I doing? Yet I didn't realize the programming and all, but I mean, I was just taking it all in. All right. So beyond that, then what happened?
I think the next big one was the flood there, Hurricane Katrina. A friend of mine was in Louisiana at the time, and again, huge disaster strikes. FEMA comes in, and then I saw, because I had somebody that was there, seeing how it was being mismanaged, and it seemed like on purpose almost. And again, I just thought something's terribly wrong when you're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to. Um, there was just a lot of questions about it. There were people that were trying to truck in supplies and they were being stopped. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Um, and the lack of support, huge amount of money comes in, and yet the people that are in the disaster generally don't, they just fall through the cracks and they go into poverty. So that was probably the second big thing. But and then the vaccine thing, my firstborn was vaccine injured. So on that front, when my firstborn was vaccine injured, I started asking questions, and again was really shut down from being able to ask questions. So something intuitively was like, there's something wrong with this. The
Okay.
truth
So
doesn't need
what
to be
happened
hidden.
in terms of the
um,
injury? What
my daughter started having just she started showing signs of behavior stuff at first, um, hitting her head on things when she would get angry, and just having these outrages. She started doing a little bit of the toe walking, just a little bit, and then she had a seizure a little after a year old, and they called it a febrile seizure, even though she didn't have a fever. They never could pinpoint it, and Children's Hospital didn't even want to look at it. They said, if she keeps having seizures, we'll take a
Oh.
look. And I said, what do you mean you'll wait until she has more before you start looking at it? So then again, of course, I'm being guided to look into the vaccine stuff. And when I wanted to ask questions to the doctors, you were not allowed to even ask that question. And that's when I stopped vaccinating my daughter and started learning more. And then my two younger never got vaccinated. They are way healthier. They've been through public school and daycare systems, no problem. They've never caused any outbreaks. So I really just started to question my reality and our social structures, and define for myself, like, how do I want to parent and protect my kids, because that's my job, right? To do what's best for me and my family. So
Where do you see this on a spiritual side?
um gosh, I mean, there's been so much that's unfolded in the last 3 years, it's hard to kind of pinpoint the exact part, right? But for me, the last couple years, I never complied to anything that happened with COVID. As far as, I never masked, and I never did the distancing thing. I very much knew that being connected to humanity was my own lifeline and my children's lifeline. um, so spiritually, it's been a process of knowing and being called and doing what I'm being called, but also honoring other people's life path. Because when I was younger, I wanted to save everybody. I wanted, like, when I would find a truth, it was like I wanted to be that person that, like, helped fix everything. And I've really had to come to my own center and recognize that we all have our purpose in this journey. And we're not all meant to be doing the same thing or thinking the same thing. And that's hard on a human level sometimes, to honor um, the spiritual unfolding of what's happening.
I want to ask if your daughter's okay. So we'll come back to that in a second. What is your spiritual purpose in this? What do you think?
Um, I definitely feel like I am here to hold the line for truth, in my own inability really to comply with a lot of stuff. It inspired other people to honor themselves, and I definitely know that's one of my purposes in this world. And also just to keep people connected through the divisiveness. Music has always been a huge bridge for me to being able to connect to other people. I love performing because I get to be vulnerable on stage, and I see people sitting there being vulnerable with me just by looking at me, and they feel
Yeah.
safe. The people will look at you when you're performing, and because they're more of the observer, they feel safe staring at you. And there's something so magical about human connection. And so I definitely know that part of my journey is to hold that space for our connection and to see that we are different for a reason, and it's so beautiful, you know, and that it really does take us all.
Yes. Okay. Is your daughter doing all right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
she actually hasn't had any seizures since that point. She had two seizures totaled at like within a couple months, and then has never had another one. But she's had social issues and um, cognitive stuff, but it's been on a level where she's been able to function, normally in life.
And
But
this started when she was right before she was 1 or right around?
yeah, she had the seizures right after she was one, but she started to show different stuff, and at the time I was scared every time I went and did this thing that I didn't feel was right for me and my daughter. Now I've learned way so much more about human health and gut health and um, genetic issues that can make people more likely to have a hard time processing the toxins in vaccines. So I happen to have MTHFR gene mutation or gene difference, which makes it harder to methylate. And so I'm pretty sure I've passed that on to my kids. One of my kids have been tested. She has one of two of that variation. Um, but it doesn't surprise me one bit that she was having reactions and having a hard time processing what was happening. But I now that I know more about the immune system too, it's kind of the concept of vaccines in itself is so outdated. We're ignoring half of what the immune system does and how it works, and so it's just it's until we can start having really honest, open conversations about it. I think that humanity is going to keep seeing issues around this because
Okay, I know I'm jumping around because I have a lot of other questions to ask, but I feel this is important right now. What led you into music?
um actually, my first husband was extremely abusive. We came together. He sang and was a musician, and I love to sing. But what got me into music, to be honest, was him wanting me to get on stage with him, but then being extremely patronizing to me on stage. And I had something to share, and so I immediately started getting on stage by myself after having a couple experiences with him that just felt so off from what I was trying to do. And I learned how to I learned my stage legs. I learned how to communicate with people just through getting up at open mics and writing every week. And it was an outlet for me to let out my frustration and anger and hurt and all of that through a hard, hard relationship.
Oh
So,
my gosh, it was like you were like a Tina Turner with Ike, right? Okay, okay, got it. How and why do you love it?
like I said, I love connecting to people,
Right.
and music is such it's just so unique in that way. You can connect to people so much more easily than you can just an everyday public experience. But there's also the freedom as an artist to say things that again you can't say always in public. Like I can sing songs about life and death. I can sing songs about murder and suicide and rape and all of these like hard heavy things that but when in a song it's like a way of expressing it and releasing it and letting it go. And so it's helped me transform feelings, but it's also helped me again like connect other people that go through suffering. We all do in different ways, and it kind of helps me hold that vulnerability for people to sit with what they've gone through and go, "Oh gosh, I'm not alone." So,
Mhm. That leads me into this question, and this may be a hard one. Let's see. What is your favorite song that you've written?
hmm, that's a hard one, but I think my
Yeah.
top, just the one that pops up to mind, is a song I wrote called "Masquerade Ball," and I wrote it back in 2009, and I feel like I wrote it for this time that we're in now. Um, and it's just a very simple waltz. Um, but the chorus is how much longer can we stand being led by an insane band, being led out of tune and out of time. I can't help but step out of line. So that's probably my favorite one. Yeah.
I love it. I do want to now talk about Be Brave Washington. I just looked at y'all's mission statement, which is great. How did that come to be? And explain again, were you one of the creators of that? How, and I thought it was stand up. What did I ask you before? Stand up Washington. I love Be Brave
Mm.
Washington because standing up in all of this, it does take incredible strength. So yeah, tell us more about that. That's incredible.
So, Be Brave started as a group of people. Actually, one of my dear friends, Shannon, a fellow friend of ours,
Okay,
um,
she's on the
she,
show already. A
yeah,
detox specialist.
she's amazing. When the world shut down, we were talking just about like concerns and stuff, and she said, "Well, I have other people in my life that are also really concerned. Would you be interested in putting a group together if I got some people together?" I'm like, "Sure." And so she got some people together around a table and we got together. And I didn't realize at the time, the role I was going to play in leading the group for 2.5 years. But I started the meeting and we just kind of went around and then it started building. At first, it was about 10 of us and then it just started growing and growing. We ended up renting a hall. When the world was still very shut down. So there were people that were really scared to be involved, but they would come, but it was like, but don't tell anybody I'm here kind of thing. um, I started taking ivermectin as a preventative because I knew that as I was pushing back more vocally, with especially the health department locally, I knew that they were very likely to call us super spreaders. And so we were educating people and just informing them and empowering them to take their lives back and decide for themselves what they wanted. And it grew into now we have almost 500 members. We
Wha-
were doing weekly meetings for about 2 years, and then the summer we dropped it back to twice a month, and then we started back up again weekly, and then we took a break, and now we're at once a month right now over the holidays because last year it was just a lot going through the holidays with trying to run a weekly meeting and it's hard because everybody it's a place for us to just have like-minded people that we're all deciding and defining for ourselves, but it's just been such a healing thing to have other people in my community that I can lean into and that they can lean into me and we all can be like, this is crazy, let's figure this out. And pushing back locally, we're very involved in getting people in engaging with our local government because we feel very strongly that that's where the power lies.
Well, so tell me about that. Like specifically, what do y'all do, or what have you done?
So, for the last 2.5 years, we go to every single county council meeting. We were going to every single city council meeting, bringing concerns from the public and from our group to these council meetings that are all recorded. It got to the point actually where our Bellingham City Council shut their meetings down because they didn't like they said we were spreading misinformation by
Woo!
bringing we were reading documents from doctors and from the CDC talking about some of the concerns with mask wearing, some of the concerns with the lockdowns psychologically on people, the vaccine concerns. We've had people show up and read Pfizer documents. And part of that was to create a public record so that we could have the opportunity to litigate if possible. It's so tricky trying to litigate against your government because they do have safety measures to where they can be, it's almost like they're immune from any decisions they make that totally can devastate the community, right?
Mhm.
Um, so we got people involved in paying attention to what was happening and what was being passed, but also in getting their voices heard. And because of that, our county council never ended up mandating the vaccine. They were a lot more conservative in their approach because they realized that there were people that very much were not okay with it and that were gonna be louder and louder if they kept trying to ignore our concerns. So, and in the 2.5 years, we have built a huge repertoire of public records now, for our county that our public officials cannot say they never knew because our health department's been called out. They have all the data. They've chosen to ignore it. So,
Oh, wow. I I went to one public hearing in my county. I can't even remember what it was at that time. There were only 10 of us, and they brought in police to stand at the door. It was like they were like, and we all look normal, like we didn't come in with mafia gear or any of that. But yeah, just suddenly there was a policeman that came into the room. Like, it was just like they were scared that we do something, or maybe they were showing us, "Hey, we got this covered." How did that happen to you guys at all?
We've had some very interesting stuff. We have, because again, we've built up a reputation of being peaceful and legal.
Mhm.
And I have come at my meetings every single time in our approach, even as we have these concerns. I always, remind people we are coming at this peacefully and
Right.
legally. Um, but our county council actually very recently, we are in an election right now, and they tried to start a discussion of changing our sheriff from an elected position to an appointed position. Knowing that they would get backlash, they set it up where we were not allowed to conceal carry going into this meeting, even though we've always been allowed to. And we made a huge stink. We have a former sheriff that's involved in our group, and
Oh,
we
that's
all pushed
ridiculous.
back.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, this is the law, and we're going to make, you have to maintain the law. You don't get to just define because you are making these bogus claims that now suddenly we're threatening. No, that's not how that works. So we really have held the line. I'm so, so proud of my community. We really have made a difference, way more than I think a lot of people now will realize. But I know as we move forward, as years ahead, we're going to see that what we've done in our approach really, really has made a difference for us being able to hold the line on our constitutional rights. Well, our God given rights, really.
How was it orchestrating 500 people? Did that go pretty well? Because I'm assuming a lot of people just also wanted to come and have their voice being heard. Yeah, how did that go? Was that difficult, or did it just kind of flow?
Well, so the way that I've set it up is that we bring information to the public, and they just come and they hear, and then pick and choose
Mhm.
where they want to take action. So we don't have people like doing work groups so much. It's more of like, here's what's coming up, here's the bills that are being proposed, here's the people that are allies in government locally, here are the people that are really not working for the people, and just encouraging people to get involved. So there are people that come and go. There are people that have come to our meeting once
Yeah.
or twice. They signed up to the newsletter. They love, knowing what we're up to, but they're
Yeah.
not as involved. And then we have other people that have been at every single meeting, and
Right.
they really they do have plugged in more. Some people will plug in more to certain issues that they're really drawn to. If it's the vaccine issue, they get more involved in the health department. Some people are getting more involved in our school boards. There are people that are just focused on the county council meetings. Um, Sometimes, like with the sheriff position, it's like we had a huge number show up for that. um we don't always get that big of a turnout in the county council meetings. Sometimes it's when people's backs are up against the wall. So like
Right.
when the mandate happened, our we had a vaccine mandate in the city of Bellingham, but not in the county. The city's whole infrastructure got gutted. This was police department, EMT,
Oh,
public works department. We lost so many people from that our group blew up because people were coming to us like, how do I protect my job? How do I save my job? What
mhm.
paperwork do I fill out? And all of us, we were all just trying to figure it out. So we would take whatever we had been finding online from other lawyers and other people across the states where it was working, and we would say, here's the exemptions they're using. Do what is best for you, because we can't tell you what to do. This is your life. Some people decided to comply. Some people decided to quit and move. Some people decided to keep going on as nurses, even though they were being on administrative leave. So we just tried to get as much information as we could, hand it back to the public, and say, do what is best for you, but don't tell people that you don't have the right to decide. And we've had growing pains. I honestly, more recently has been the hardest. You're talking about the divisiveness and confusion.
Yes.
Um, that's been a really big thing, and elections are nothing. Elections are very much used as part of this whole divide and conquer ploy. And so in our own local government, we have an ally that has been absolutely supportive of the efforts of Be Brave Washington. And our local GOP is now, in my opinion, gutting her ability to stay in that position to represent us. And yet she's a conservative candidate, and they say they stand for conservative values, but they're now gutting her candidacy to stay in that position. And it's caused divisiveness in my group, because I'm going to stand behind this ally who has been an absolute open vocal ally for us on the council and with the health department. And yet it's created a huge amount of division within our group, because as I said, no, we're standing with Kathy. Other people are like, she's a traitor over this one little tiny
Ooh,
issue, but they were able to just, milk that issue and get a lot of people to say, oh, we can't trust her. We're going to vote for this other person we don't know at all and
right.
get her out of there. So divisiveness definitely, and it's happened in other ways as well. Religious views, the whole when the Roe versus Wade thing came up, that was a huge division in our group, because everyone's got their own values and the reasons that they feel the way they do. And um it's like you can't get two Christians in the room believe, saying okay, we're on the same we're both Christians, but those values are still they're still different, so yeah, it's been a journey and a huge I feel like I've grown so much as a human being, being able to lead and to listen, to lead and listen, and to know when to let other people's influence our group, and when to let things go and be like, well, you don't like how we're doing it, but that's okay. So
Yeah, like when to step in. Again, you also finding that delicate balance of not creating more division, of being love, which
mm,
I feel that all of this is all about. In terms of exemptions, knowing in Ohio, 3 are legal. How many exemptions do you guys have in Washington state?
it's kind of tricky. It's not that uh, simple with us. We have three technically, but the medical exemption is almost, it's almost non-existent. There, it's really really hard to get a medical exemption. And
Wow.
then they in 2016, 2017, they passed it to where the MMR is no longer, you can't use the personal exemption. So a lot of people had to move their personal exemption to the religious exemption because you can't have two exemptions. And so
Mhm.
they've created it trickier and trickier. The biggest thing though is that people do not know their rights, and because of that, a lot of people comply, they never are given their rights. And one of my biggest pushbacks to the health department is, if these things are so safe and effective, give people the information that's your job to give them, which is these exemption forms. Because I've been, our group prints them out for people and educates people on how to fill them out. The health department should be doing that. That's their job. So I think one of the most beautiful things about Be Brave has been we have been able to hold that space for everybody. I have always led from that place of bringing us together, not dividing, not name calling, none of that stuff, because I knew that at any point somebody that had been complying might realize that it wasn't serving them, and maybe join us. And I didn't want there to be any sort of this us versus them, this
Yeah.
judgment, because it really does take us all to say enough's enough. We're human beings together.
How you feel after saying all that?
I feel very grateful for the human beings that I have drawn to my world. Some very humble hearted, very very brave people, for sure. And some of them are really outspoken, and some of them are really quiet, and some of them are really forward in the way they're doing it, and some people quietly pray at home. So
Yeah, and you need all of that.
yeah.
Hey, really, thank you for doing that too, and lending voices to those who don't have a voice, and voices to those who didn't or who still don't know that this is such a big deal. So we're gonna send some love and some care to you, because I know from my experience doing any of that, whether you're the leader, because I took a pretty pivotal role in my group too, which it disbanded because
What was your group?
uh what was my group? It's been so I stopped that and started doing the podcast safety committee,
Okay.
called a safety committee. So it's very it's a constitutional group. Yet, let me see what I can say. Uh, the one gentleman who helped start it ended up disbanding our group because of ego and all that. And I'm watching it going, this is just like politics. I was astounded at what happened. So within that, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it on my own. So in having this podcast, so I'm really going to, because I'm very spiritually bent as well. Oh my gosh, now we're going to go into the spiritual side of it, and I can open it up and do whatever I want because this is mine and I'm not beholden to anybody else or anybody else's thoughts. So it is challenging being part of a group. So awesome. I'm going to go thumbs up and say kick butt. Okay, I do want to talk to you about Seed Saver. Tell me about that.
About seed saving?
Yes.
So I've been growing food just in my, on my property, like small garden style for a number of years. Probably I'd say almost 10 years or something like that. And slowly started getting into seed saving. And I am just a beginner. I have a lot of seed that I'm saving, but I tend to stick to the ones that are super easy, lettuces and flowers. I grow a lot of edible flowers, things like that. I'm just starting to kind of branch out into saving seed that are a little bit harder. As far as it takes more thought and organization in it to save it. So beets
Mhm.
are one of those plants that you can't just save one or two beets and then have them grow a bunch of seed for you and then you save them. Apparently, they can have inbreeding happen if they don't have a mix of pollination.
Oh, let me laugh at that. So, and I do not know much about seed saving, but I know not to, to get away from genetically modified. Like I'm assuming that's also one of the reasons that you're doing this. And okay,
Yes,
and
very
then
much. I grow
inbreeding.
organic for sure.
Oh, so what does that mean? Inbreeding if you don't do
So
so,
so yeah, there's certain seeds that if it doesn't have a lot of plants, like so there's a lot of
oh
variety
my
that when it's
gosh.
pollinated, it can actually inbreed and make a weaker plant. So I'm just starting to learn more about that, and I'm a beginner, but as I'm learning more, I'm going, oh, that's why my beet seeds that I tried to save didn't save. Or with tomatoes, they need to be fermented, the seeds, and so you can ferment them before you dry them or before you grow them. But when you save seed and you don't do that fermentation process, then you're not going to get a viable plant. And you'll notice if you do grow tomatoes and they drop and rot on the ground, you get great tomatoes the next year from those. And it's because of that fermentation process that helps the seed. I think it opens it up or something for the
Mhm.
viability. So, yeah, there's so much to learn, but I've been pushing against Monsanto for a long time. And I really got in my head probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I really want to start a campaign called Outgrow Monsanto. And so, for me to do that, I wanted to learn more about seed and how to get people. I want, I would love to see guerrilla gardening in my county, just all over. We have so many waterways, it'd be very easy to integrate edible landscape stuff in the
Oh my gosh. And it
area.
sounds
So
like with different produce, seed saving is different with lettuce, with beets, with tomatoes. It's not just, oh,
yeah,
I'm just going to learn seed saving now, but then going into each product as well.
totally. Yeah, and I
Oh,
think the biggest thing that, like, for the basics is just making sure that when you pull your seed that it dries completely, because sometimes people will store it when it's not completely dry and then it molds.
mhm.
And then some of the things I've learned too with seed is that it's a temperature thing too. Some of them have to be frozen or drop down to a certain temperature before they are viable for next year. So like trees, like pine cones, they drop seed when it catches on fire. Like so, there's certain things that grow from heat or from cold. So I'm
Oh,
learning more about that too. But
oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that because I have no idea. And I know I want to see what you can glimmer through this. I know that genetically modified is not nutritious for us, yet I that is the one thing. There's this one documentary I want to watch, but I haven't really investigated that completely. Can you give us a little bit of info on that?
sure. So genetic modified seed usually is produced so that it can't recreate. So every year you have to buy more seed. So that was a big reason for me to start saving seed is because I grow organic and so it is more viable. And then I've also gotten seed that was organic that I bought one packet and now I every year grow that plant. So genetically modified is often they are sterile seed. So you have to go every year and buy more. And then as far as GMO plants, there's a lot that we don't know. I think that's
Yeah.
just the truth of it. There's a lot more that we don't know than we do, but thankfully nature always finds a way through. So
It, she, he, Mother Earth, Father Earth, it does. And I am trying not to buy like anything that doesn't have seeds. So like seedless watermelon, seedless cucumbers. Would you agree with that or what would you say?
I don't really know enough about that because I think that's more of a
Oh,
hybridization
interesting.
than a genetic modification.
Okay.
And again, I don't know enough about it, but they might actually be
Good point.
breeding like a watermelon with a watermelon type of thing versus trying to take a watermelon and putting some genes into the watermelon that's not naturally there, like fish or something, you know?
No, and it just sounds so weird. All right. I told Misty from the beginning, oh, it'd be so nice if we could keep this to around 50 minutes. I don't know if we're going to do that because I also wanted to talk about being a body talk practitioner. Again, I know lots of stuff, but that one's new to me. So, yeah, enlighten us, would you?
Sure. Body talk is using biofeedback, like muscle testing, to help the body better communicate with the self. So it's on the premise that the body is constantly in communication with itself and all the many different systems. And so, through barriers of communication or compromise from stress, trauma, those lines of communication get crossed or severed. So, body talk is about asking the body, using a very specific protocol, like going through a chart, asking the body where it wants better communication. And when you do that, the body is so quick to share with you where it's wanting better communication. And so the body talk system uses that information to link anywhere from two to many links in the body to increase the communication. And then you tap it into the head, basically waking up your energy system to this newfound communication link. And then you tap it into the heart and it stores it as a new memory. And some of the principles around body talk is that, we think memory is stored up here, but this is actually like a circuit board. And that they have found through science that the heart and even the jawline tends to store memory. And so the heart and our jaw system will send signals when it's accessing memory. It actually sends it to the brain and then the memory. And so part of tapping it into the heart is to store this communication as a new memory. So it's like, our cells, they regenerate every 7 years. How come we keep regenerating that arthritic knee? It's because of the memory being stored. And so it's running on it this stored memory of a disconnected communication. So when you store it as a new memory, then it can kind of update your system so that it can start creating a better pathway of communication. So that's
Ooh.
it in essence.
Oh God, that's wonderful. It's so cool to hear you talk about that. So I do talking about things, talking through things, and then do body work just intuitively. And I have been working a lot on the jaw recently. So it's so neat to hear you say that because it's very tight and also your voice and opening your mouth, it's all so connected. So that makes complete sense with what you are expressing. How long have you been doing that? How long have you been into it? I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
Probably, I think about, I would say 10 to 12 years.
Oh my gosh,
I
so well.
first got into it from I did a session with somebody and it was so profound. I had to go learn. And
Okay.
so I got certified in Body Talk 1 and 2 to be able to offer sessions. And then I also do Reiki and some other things, but it has been very profound for me. And yeah,
What
learning to listen to myself too, right? Better.
yes.
All
Yeah,
these
tell me
tools. Sometimes
all
we get them
right.
for other people, but it's really for us.
Yeah, it is for us. And the same thing for me. Like I have all these different tools, if you want to call it that, and then just combining it all into I do one thing, but I bring all of them in. Can you tell us, and we'll go to the Just Be practice after this. Do, what one of the most profound sessions that you gave to somebody else? Do you remember what happened? And can you
Yeah,
talk
it was
about it?
actually an interesting physical shift that happened. It's, when you're doing a session, anything can come up, energetic,
Right.
emotional, right? But this particular session, it was when I was a new practitioner and I was doing a link for somebody regarding their skeletal system. And as I was holding the link, and you're just very lightly touching the body, and my hand was on her hip, and her hip popped under my hand, like as if it was a chiropractic adjustment or
Yep.
something. And I just kept, tapping out. We got done. She gets up off the table and she's walking around and she says, I haven't walked this
Oh,
normal since I was a kid. She's
oh,
like, I don't know what you did, but I felt it pop when you had your hand on it. But now she's like, my whole body feels so much more in alignment. And that was just, I was new to it, right? So sometimes it's like that surprise of, oh, it actually works. Um, but yeah, and it was a very physical, it was undeniable. So that was really cool.
oh, that's so great. And do you do remote sessions?
I do.
Okay, that's great to ask too, because I really want to ask you if anyone wanted to reach out to you asking about Brave Washington or wanting to set something up for themselves. Would that be okay?
Yeah, for sure. Probably be best to email me on my personal email. I'm not sure if I gave that to you or not.
You didn't, but send that. Well, I have it. I'll put that on there down, put that in the contacts as well. Yay. Yay. All right. Let's go into the Just Be practice. Unless there is something else you want to talk about. Do you feel, again, I think there's a whole bunch more we could talk about. Do you feel good with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Let's do it, man. I'm ready. Just Be
right.
practice.
So I really wanted to share this song because it's kind of jumped back into my heart. It was a song I wrote many, many years ago, and songs kind of do that for me. They come and go into my life. And this one has just been really profound lately.
Okay,
So,
let me stare at you while you sing.
okay.
Okay, right. And we talked about too that the guitar isn't in the mic, but just hearing it in the background and hearing you sing, beautiful. All right, let's do it.
They say our spirits never die. They manifest in and out of form with time. Well, I think I'd like to live my life moment by moment and enjoy the ride. I won't ask you to change your face for me. I wouldn't want you pretending. And I suggest you don't place a mask on me. There's no use presuming what someone else should be. If we dream our own dreams, we'll be given a life that's fulfilling and free. Those who are with us are living their purpose. We're all part of a tapestry. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Faces of strangers all bear my name. These times are changing and it's okay. Love lies inside our eyes, that's where connection finds us. Reminds us to be kind to each other. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. If we dream our own dreams, we'll be given a life that's fulfilling and free. Those who are with us are living their purpose. We're all part of a tapestry. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. They say our spirits never die. They manifest in and out of form with time. So I think I'd like to live my life moment by moment and enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. Yeah.
That was beautiful. Guitar didn't come through at all, but it doesn't really matter. But for those of you guys watching, seeing her there with it is wonderful. Misty, all right, we got contact information for you. Herbalist, we didn't even talk about herbology. Seed Saver, Bodytalk, Be Brave, Washington. So much. Thank you so much also for sharing yourself with us. I say this with everybody, but it's so true, for sharing yourself with us and your heart, which I can feel through the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Eden. You're an amazing human, and it's super fun to connect.
Thanks. All right, stay with me for just a second. All right, you people, everybody else, see y'all next week. So cool of you to be here. I went from being off most social media to being on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or True Social, and you might be watching this on YouTube, Rumble, or BitChute. Or you might be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm on over 19 directories at this point. So connect, comment, subscribe, like. Oh, and my intention is to have a new episode out Wednesday of each week. Oh, Lordy, more to come.